Well, it's finally here. I figured out how to make the Dragon God OwO skip pretty consistent. You will need to be in human form simply to max out your vitality. Now, my stats are a little under-leveled compared to when you would actually reach Dragon God during a normal run. However, I still have the base 9 vitality, and with how leveling up works with defense, it should be fine for a normal run. Aside from being in human form, there are no other requirements to doing this glitch, so there is no need for any cinematic 30 FPS bullshit. Now, before I get into it, I do not think this skip is currently viable for the speedrun, as it simply is a little too long, roughly about 15 seconds longer than the actual normal strategy used for Dragon God. However, there could potentially be a way to make this skip faster than the current strategy. The run starts just like any normal Dragon God encounter, making your way to the first pillar. However, once we reach the first obstacle, we will be breaking it and then staying right where it was. This causes Dragon God to punch an entirely different area than where we are. I don't know why he does this.
It's 2009 AI.
Once he removes his fist, we can then peek out behind the pillar to trick Dragon God into punching an earlier section of the rubble. This allows us to then break the second object and get into the corner as he's about to grab. Now just stay perfectly still and watch Dragon God abduct you like the little child you are. The grab also helps perfectly set up Clever Rat Ring. Now just follow some very specific pathing to escape his wonky collision down here, and we're able to get to the second ballista no problem. However, Dragon God at the end of this, now that we have skipped a ballista, becomes very janky, only reachable via magic like homing soul arrow, so sorry melee users. Regarding why this skip is actually very consistent and works, when Dragon God grabs us, there's actually a static piece of debris on the ground that we can actually walk over, and it gives us just barely any height at all, but just enough so that we can get grabbed and stuck into his own collision. Now the debris isn't there by default, it actually is part of the original pillars that are not breakable by normal means, only when Dragon God punches, hence why we actually force Dragon God to punch an area that we're not in yet. As for the reason Dragon God seemingly punches a future section that we're not in while we're at this pillar, I have no idea. Now like I said before, this does end up being slower than the current strategy used for Dragon God, however it's only about 10 to 15 seconds slower than the average run. So there is potential for this to be faster. And that potential is this right here. For some reason when I was testing, Dragon God decided to punch a second time after he put me down. Now if this is somehow recreatable, then that skips having to go all around Dragon God's stupid ass fucking collision, and that would make this pretty much on par with the speed of the current strategy. Now aside from the obvious time loss, this skip is actually incredibly consistent from my testing, and I for one will probably be using it since, well, I'm not getting any world records anytime soon.